Hello, all. It's a pleasure to be part of this great company and take part of NAPA in general. And yeah, today let's talk about the unknown. And my name is Maija, and I'm from Riga, Latvia, from this studio called NordID. And we are formed together with an ad agency, NordDDB. So we kind of always are trying to specialize and do our designs based on strategic thinking. And yeah, so we base story and strategy is kind of really important part of our process. But today, what do I want to talk about today? And so, as the overall topic of the conference is already stating, we are kind of talking about the packaging and design in general after or in the pandemia. And so I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a different twist on it and maybe not necessarily think of and about business side or how the design itself is changing, but I kind of wanted to look deeper into the question of the unknown in general. Like if we look at everyday lives of today, we are constantly being faced with the unknown. Every day we kind of are just looking forward to see what's next. Like, are we getting better? Is it getting worse? What's happening? Are clients sticking with us? Yeah, what's the future gonna hold? So everyone, no matter if you're creative or just a person in the year 2020, there has been a lot of the unknown. But if we look at the creative world and the creative process in general, then we can see that the unknown actually is something that's there constantly. And so that means that this time is actually a pretty good test for all of us to see how flexible are we and to maybe even stretch us a little bit further. And so what I wanted to look into is to actually see how are we doing with the unknown? How comfortable with that are we? And if I look at myself, I realize that a lot of the times, actually there's more of the fear of the unknown than the hunger for it. And to be realistic, like if we look at our industry and kind of the task of a designer in general, we have to be the ones who are in control. We have to know which audience is going to react to which kind of design and which typefaces work the best, and just all these little sets of things that make us confident and make us being in control of how our design is going to be, how it's going to impact our audiences and economy and businesses. So we would like to say, hey, we are in control, our teams are in control. And we even have, of course, over time and over decades and years have developed all these sets of tools that help us to be in control. We stick very rigorously to grids to make sure the designs and branding systems are kind of, always all together and that there's a consistency across many different materials. We know how to use typefaces, typography to create powerful messages, to really create an impactful tone of voice. And of course, each designer must have its own comfort zone where he feels like, okay, this is kind of my go-to set of tools, go-to set of practices and principles that I use. And so looking at my own practice, there was a moment when I realized that I'm actually maybe even a little bit shamefully comfortable in using a little stripe and a little line somewhere in any design. And it could be, I could blame Massimo Vignelli, which I had the opportunity to to work with and to be part of his workshop some 10 years ago, and it was a very impactful experience. And of course, he is a designer who was very, very all about the rules, all about which typefaces to use, which which grids, which colors. And I'm sure as a young designer, I got very much impacted from his just confidence. This is the right way and the only way. And so after a certain time, looking back, I realized that whether it's an identity or an app design where maybe it's, of course, needed for functionality to kind of show the fields which you can enter some text in, or packaging design projects, I realized over and over that there is somewhere at least some little piece of line. And so I started wondering, like, is there anything outside my comfort zone, and how could I kind of go there and not necessarily, of course, lose the little line, but to start looking for more practices and processes that can that can eventually really kind of take me further. And even more like outside my own process, of course, there's Pinterest and all these creative blogs and opportunities to see so much information and to see that pretty much everything already is out there. So how do we not lose our confidence there, but actually just find our own new ways of working and not even care that there's millions of creatives in the world. But of course, that kind of leads us to a question: have we seen it all? Is it even possible? Like all of these questions that creatives ask themselves, but maybe are kind of a little bit fearful to say honestly, like, we don't know. Is there anything that's not there yet? But even if there is, like, how can we not be the same and find our own twist on the design, on the results, how to find an authentic voice, not only for brands that we work for, but even for ourselves. And so that leads us to the other side of this question of the unknown. If we are fearful, can we actually find ways to be hungry for it? Can we make ourselves forget everything that we've seen and not even care about it, but kind of just look for, new food to eat, to get somewhere else, somewhere new? And so then that led me to a question: who knows, who kind of is fearless? And of course, kids would be kind of the first answer to that, because they are fearless of most of the things. Well, maybe of the dark and spiders sometimes, but usually, like, if you think a kid is a fearless too, and maybe even, way more eager to try new things and to experiment, and they're not feeling judged, and they don't have to feel like, oh, this design has to be Pinterest ready or something like that. They're just kind of going their own ways. And the other thing that I'm thinking of is just someone who's trying new things, who's not a professional. Like, for instance, I'm like, just for my own happiness and fun, I'm learning to sing and to wakeboard. And these things are something that I'm just like, I know I'm not a professional in that, so I don't have to perform, and that kind of takes away a lot of pressure. And how to get there, even being a professional designer, right? How to find this freedom in just failing and not knowing and not being, and even being confident in the fact that, hey, I don't know what's going to happen and I don't know what's going to come out of it. And so the case that I wanted to kind of go through today actually is not about packaging. And of course, this is a packaging design conference and packaging design awards, but especially because of that, I thought, like, hey, let's look at some other projects and some other maybe even industries and see what we can learn from that. And this particular case that I wanted to learn from is for the Academy of Music. And I had the honor to work with them for their 100-year anniversary. And they approached me with this question and this project of creating a publication for them and for this 100-year anniversary. And so obviously, as always, the first steps also the same for this, where I just kind of went to the building and was walking around and just trying to capture the energy and the feeling and what's even, yeah, just like what's happening there and what are the stories in the building, what we can find there. And I was really mesmerized by this experience because literally it felt like the whole building is just vibrating and full with energy. In each room, there are students who are practicing their own instruments. And when you're walking in the halls of it, it really just felt so full of, yeah, just energy and music. And it was really mesmerizing for me, who's not a musician in that sense, and just being a little bit outside of it. And I realized that there are just so many personalities, of course, and stories and talent that's been born and developed in this building, in this institution. But also, like, there's a lot of sweat and a lot of work that's been put into these students, into these kids who were then developed to professional musicians. And I started kind of questioning how to put all of these great findings into a publication that's just, a book, that's something flat. You have to kind of capture something so lightly. And so what was pretty clear in the beginning was that one of the aspects that we really need to capture is the personal aspect. So the people, the students, the teachers who have been there for years and really are kind of the souls of the institution. So it was clear that one of the aspects will be a very strong photography that shows emotion and motion and energy. And so that was pretty clear. Then next step was, okay, how can we help with the layout itself to really bring this vibration and energy and rhythm into the publication? And so I was happy that they were pretty open to kind of, a pretty, sorry, I'm losing my words, kind of a pretty dynamic layout, and very open to not being just static and kind of, this is academy, but they kind of got really, open and flexible to whatever I was offering, and working with these layouts was one of the things. And of course, it's funny, like if you look at these, there still is the little line, like it found its way in it. But in general, it felt like overall there's way more freedom in the way we're working with all the details and all the materials to put this together. And you could say that, okay, this already brings a nice publication together, but it felt like it's not really enough. So what was the next step was to really think, okay, like how can we actually show all of this work and all of this energy that goes into creating music? And has anyone even tested or tried to capture this process of the physical act of making music? And so I started, just asking, what if we would actually try to visualize it? And not in the sense that we are used to seeing music being visualized, where we can, of course, think of something like Windows Media Player or some other like bars going up and down, but more the physical aspect of it. Like, what would we see if we would add a pen or a pencil or any type of paint to the musician's fingers and to the musician's kind of process? What would we see, and could there be something interesting out of it? And so back to some historical references. There was an influential artist, Yves Klein, who was did some very cool work with actual live performances and having orchestra and these ladies who were all covered in paint, and they would do live paintings. And so that was almost like happening, like a performance. And a lot of similarities there, but maybe a little bit of a different twist, where I literally wanted to see what would happen if a musician is imagining that he's playing a particular piece of music, And we would even, like, at one point we considered, like, hey, like, we could even write down which piece of music was this. And as you see, this girl, this clarinetist, she even had her notes in front of her. So she was literally thinking, okay, this is not a pen, or this is not this tube of paper, but she really tried to imagine, like, and try to play the actual piece of music. And so several artists, several musicians joined this experiment. And for me, it was really just kind of humbling that these professional musicians, they're being playful and open to the fact that I'm asking to, hey, I'm going to stick these pens to your fingers, do you mind? Or like, hey, like, try to look at this as your instrument, and I'm giving them just a piece of white paper or a white light box that I wanted to film underneath from. And it was interesting how with some of the processes it was easier and some harder. Like you can see here with the drummer, of course, it was very close to his actual process. We were even able to capture the sound of it. With the dancer, because they're also teaching choreography, we needed a whole room covered in paper to capture her movement. So each of the musicians and each of the artists, of course, took a little bit of a different twist and a little bit of a different result as well. And so the whole thing ended up coming together to this publication, Stories and Sounds, where we mixed all of these elements together. So the dynamic layouts with the little lines, and we showed the paintings that ended up coming out from these experiments on kind of these transparent sheets in between the more static and more publication kind of ready layouts there. So it was an intersection or kind of a juxtaposition of the text and the image. It was what was really nice was that we were not only able to put it in as a nice painting, but we actually within our process realized that we can use, of course, augmented reality. And with that, the whole publication took a whole another twist where we were actually able to show people what was the process, and the paintings became alive. And we could tell way more about capturing the process of music than we were able to do it before. And so this kind of just shows how augmented reality can give an additional level of information, additional level of, just kind of experience, no matter if it's a publication, packaging, or outdoor, whatever. We'll see what comes in the future, but I'm sure that this will be developed and implemented in our lives way more than it is right now. An interesting little thing, what is that? So as I mentioned in our process, we were very free in how it ended up leading us. And so one of the things was, how do we present this book to the public? And so the team of the Academy decided that they want to do a big concert for it. And it was also an opening for their season in general. But so they invited me to do the stage design for this concert as well. And for me, as a packaging and branding designer, it was like, okay, that is kind of a big challenge, but why not? And it actually came pretty easy. And I guess in those times when you feel like it just kind of flows and you're in the flow of creating the whole set, both the publication and now the stage design, it felt like it's the right thing to do. So basically what we did here was created these huge screens where we tried to resemble and replicate some of the feelings and emotions that were also part of the book. And of course, since those are videos, they give a little bit of additional movement and just overlaying, and that felt like, okay, it's a really nice result there. But one of the challenges that we kind of faced was this idea that we wanted to capture the music, and we didn't want to just keep it about the photography. We wanted to show a bit more of the process that we had put into the publication. And so we started thinking and looking into the options of how can we actually capture the music that's being created on the stage. And so looking back in our process, we were kind of just going and seeing what historically has been done. And it was interesting to find this guy, Oscar Fischinger, who actually, even before any computer software, he already was experimenting and created a lot of great motion pieces that capture music. And like, even for today's opportunities with what we can create, this feels pretty great. Like, and when you think it was done in the 30s, it's pretty awesome. So I went into just looking and researching the generative art in general and seeing how some of the learnings from that can help us to arrive at a process that we can both afford and actually realize on the stage. And some of the things that I found, of course, very interesting pieces, similarly to mine for the publication, generative art that has been done by code, but then ends up creating a more like a static image, or some examples that, of course, require way more technology and money, of course, which at this case we didn't have, but it would be kind of amazing to do something like this that was done for the Olympic Games in London in the 2012, where we can see how the piece of art, the piece of motion is created from the sports guy himself. So where we ended up landing is a little bit of a different visual, but same kind of idea. So we ended up using the pause of the concert to show several different artists and several different musicians. Same song, which is the anthem of the Academy of Music, and we captured the music with these lines. So again, of course, it's interesting to see how I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone, but then somehow still get back into it. But of course, it's a little bit of a different visual that came out of it. So yeah, that whole thing brings us to this idea that we used to create a system, a set of rules where we kind of knew each typeface, sizes, all the cases, all the situations, and how predictable it's going to be. And we now have to go into thinking more into learning to create a system for a software or a system for somebody else to do it, and kind of more system thinking in a little bit of a different way. And so here I have to find myself on this edge of fear and hunger, right? So we constantly have to have that set of tools that we know we're going to get to great results with, but at the same time we have to be open and free to be hungry for the unknown. And so just a few examples that I thought are pretty interesting to share here, where we can see how both in 2D and 3D and different options, different ways for design, we can find these principles being used. And this is a simple one where a set of rules were programmed, and then these dynamic posters are created. So basically you can create hundreds and thousands of different posters for whatever needs you have. Of course, we see this tendency and trend into identities in general, where it used to be that we see these dynamic identities where maybe there's a container that's being filled with different content, but we see that now it's taking a new step where even softwares are built for the brands to use and then build their new little icon every time, from basically not from scratch, but from the set of these rules, but it all comes to a different result. And so I thought that this was a great resource for me to share to you guys, or this guy, Rune Manson, he has put together this learning material about programming design systems, which I just can suggest to check out. And now we come to the question, design thinking in terms of systems, what has it to be done? Sorry, my tongue is twisting. Yeah, so what's in it for branding? And some things we can think of, maybe there can be projects where we can let somebody else to create. Like, for instance, maybe you can hire someone unexpected. Like, this is just a picture from Oakland Zoo where they hired their own animals to do some art to then auction and do some fundraising. Or this artist, Mark Nystrom, is working with wind. And for years, he has been researching how to incorporate wind speeds and just wind into his pieces of art and illustrations. Or this artist, Craig Ward, together with Lyndon Gledhill, he created this typographic system that was pretty much based on contradicting magnetic fields. So again, he created a system that can create for him. Or at the end of the day, of course, we also have to learn how to work with robots and how to create systems for them that they can actually create something unexpected for us. Another thing, we can still keep using the great aspects of digital printing. And of course, many brands have been doing that already for a few years, but I feel like it's still just kind of taking its popularity. But the basic idea of each label being a unique one, and HP even has this software that helps you to create it. So again, a system for creating unexpected opportunities there. Involve community. D&AD Festival a couple of years ago, they created this system where anyone could create their own logo, their own mark. So again, a system for community to be kind of part of the whole creative process. So that again can be a very good tool to make everyone feel like they're part of it, and that's not just something that you deliver for them. Or at the end of the day, borrow from other industries. I mean, there can be so many other places where to find inspiration, right? Like even, I don't know, car tires can be the ones who are drawing something for you, or animals or spiders or whatever, socks. Just kind of keep open for this idea of borrowing from other industries and other aspects of creativity. And so, where I want to end with this, just stay hungry. Like, don't be fearful of the unknown. Stay flexible and, be creative in the sense of just being open for the unknown. And if you want to say hi or reach out, please feel free to check out our NordID Riga Instagram, or just give us a note and let me know if you have some questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks.